Welcome to the Wayne Bennett Podcast, celebrating West Virginia's people, places, and the culture of Southern Appalachia. Now here's your host, Wayne Bennett.
Welcome to Wayne Bennett's Podcast. My name is Wayne Bennett. This is episode 94, and it's February the 21st, 2023. And our guest today is a business owner and a coach, Adam Bells. Welcome.
Hey, thank you. I appreciate you inviting me to come on here.
Listen, I can remember when you were in junior high and you were kind of tech savvy at that time. You were in a tech fair and did the little cars and all that. And when did you first get started working on small engines?
I guess probably somewhere in that junior high phase. I'm going to say probably between 14 and 15 years old.
Really?
Yep. And I kind of fell in love with it, enjoyed it, and kind of learned some of it from my grandfathers. And man, it's actually done well for me. I'm not going to complain.
Now, when you got into high school, we won't talk about sports yet, but let's talk about work experience. Were you working on small engines at that time, or?
I was. I actually started. I started at Beckley Feed and Hardware when I was 15 years old. I started working there. Basically, I was in 10th grade. Started working there. I rode my bicycle to work, so it was a very enjoyable time. But I started there, and guy that was named Sid Larry. He hired me on, and he said, "Hey, I'm going to have you to load and unload stuff, and then the guy downstairs is going to train you to work on small engines." And he did. His name was a fellow that worked there at the time was Ben Porterfield, and super nice guy. And man, he trained me and done a lot of good things for me, and kind of sent me on my way for the rest of it's now 25 years worth of it. So it's been awesome. So
well, I was going to ask you about Ben because he grew up in my neighborhood, and him and his son Mark, they both worked on lawnmowers and stuff forever. And then Benny worked for the city some, I think, and he's passed away now. He's not with us anymore.
Right.
But
Right.
I can remember when he was 12 years old, working on a lot of people's lawnmowers out of his basement. And
Right.
There was a guy too that came from Beckley Mower so he had a business and he sold it and came over there. Were you still there then?
I was actually. That was Bill Smith.
Okay.
And he sold out, of course, to Austin there at Beckley Feed, and he, Bill was. I'm going to say he was almost like a father figure, to me on this. I mean, he really what we're being left off, he picked up, and he just, he was just a great guy to be around. The big story was that people would go to Beckley Mower and they'd say, "Man, that guy was kind of grouchy sometimes, but he was just really good and really caring to people but he got aggravated quickly with people." But he was really good to me, and he actually worked for me here for a little while when I first opened. He sure did. Sure did. He kind of retired, but then he'd come in and work 3 or 4 hours a day, and man, I enjoyed him being here because he was just good to have around.
Then you had Mike Marion worked here for a while.
He actually worked here before we bought it.
Oh, okay.
He sure did. He worked for Jeff here before we bought it. And, Mike, of course, I talked to Mike. Mike comes in and out quite a bit. And Mike was, I'd love to have Mike work for me. I mean, because he's an abundance of knowledge and just a great guy as well. So
he had his own business, and he grew up in my neighborhood too, just down the street.
Okay.
And, His dad was a fireman, and Mike. Then they went into the business for a while, and but I hadn't seen Mike in several years. But he was another guy that, as a kid, was taking lawnmowers apart and putting them back together.
I was going to say there was a few of us, and that's what I said. I said I was kind of the young guy around for Of course, I'm getting a little older now, but hey, those guys. They treated me well and taught me everything that they possibly could, and I'm appreciative of it because it's really worked out for my little shop here. It's really kind of helped me along.
Now, there was a guy that worked down there. I don't think he worked on lawnmowers or anything, but a guy that worked at Beckley Feed for a long time. He had kind of long hair and glasses.
John Bartlett.
Okay.
Yep, and he was the plumbing hardware Superman is what I'm going to call him because if you had a question of something like that, man, he could point you in the right direction. And I haven't talked to John in a while, but as far as I know, he's still around and still doing okay. So
now you became the store manager for Caperton at Beckley Feed and Hardware.
I was, and it's that's kind of fell in my memory there, but I think it was probably somewhere in the, I don't know, I was probably my mid-20s or something like that, and he took me under his wing and kind of tried to teach me a few things about management, and he was a good guy to teach me some things as well. He's put a lot of time and effort into me. Let's put it that way. And we had a good successful business there for several years.
Yeah.
So
I hate to see that place closed down, but I can understand, what the economy is. Now they got a McDonald's sitting there.
Exactly right. Exactly right. Yeah, I was going to say, it's kind of when you go down there and you kind of look at that McDonald's, they've got that mural on the wall there of Beckley Feed. And I walked in there one day and I was like, man, I worked there for a long time. That's right.
Well, the Larricks were a great family. I worked for his brother at Coca-Cola.
Okay.
And he was a tremendous guy to work for, been there for years. But my uncle built when they put in the garden center there in the back, the beams.
Okay, yep.
Rick Bennett,
Rick,
Dwight
yep.
Bennett.
I remember
he's
those
the one
guys.
that built that. And that was a pretty big task.
It was. That was a monstrous, task for him. And man, they done a great job. I mean, it looked amazing when they got done, and those guys was nice guys. He still comes in. So they come in, I remember those guys because I was working there at the time when they were building that. And, of course, we got to know them guys pretty good because they spent quite a bit of time there building that, monstrosity thing. So it was really cool, though. It was to watch them work and to do the things. They spent a lot of time and effort on that.
When did they close down and did you open this place up?
They actually closed down in 2013, and that's when we opened. So they kind of fell through that summer. We opened in April, and I think he closed up in that fall of 13, somewhere between November and December, and kind of auctioned things off. And I think that's when the sale went along, and McDonald's come in and started their tasks there.
Now, did you taught small engine repair, didn't you?
I did. I actually taught it over as evening classes over at Votech for several years.
Uh-huh.
Sure did. We done. Well, they had the adult education classes, and I actually picked up. I've still got a guy working for me today of the first class that I done, and I think that was back in. Don't hold me to this, but I think it was 2004 or 2005, and he still works for me now.
Wow.
So he was a young kid at that point, and he was fresh out of school, or actually still in school. So he came to work for me and done a pretty good job for me.
Now, didn't you work in the mines, around the mines too?
I did, and I quit down at Beckley Feed. I think it was 2009, and I went down and got a job for Pocahontas Coal down at the East Gulf Prep Plant, and I enjoyed that. I learned a lot. It was because basically that's all I've done my entire life with small engine. I'd worked down there for 15 years or better, and kind of enjoyed it. And I said, man, I'm going to do something different. So I went down and I got into the prep plant, and they taught me how to run the plant and load trains and so on and so forth. And I really enjoyed it, but I didn't enjoy it as much as I enjoy what I do now. So Jeff Cox.
But you were doing a little bit of everything.
Oh yeah, doing a little bit of everything. Well, I tell you, it was crazy. So we opened up here in 2013. So I think it was in the fall of 2012. Jeff had shut this place down, and Cox, and he had shut down Mountaineer Mower. And he called me and he said, hey, man, he said, there's an opportunity here for you if you're interested. He said, I'll lease you my building for a little while, and you try it out and see what you think. So in April 2013, I said, hey, we're going to pull the trigger. We're going to try it. And he said, okay. So he released us the building for a few months, and that was probably the worst few months of my life. I worked here all day, and I'd go work there all night. And I'd get me about 3 hours of sleep a day, and I felt like I was going to fall over. But it really paid off. I ended up quitting the mines, or giving my notice there in November, and then it just took off from there. And then eventually we purchased the building from Jeff, and so on and so forth. So it's really been it just kind of ballooned on us, and I've really enjoyed being in business here so far.
When you're going into business and you got to get in with the franchises some way to have some type of equipment you're going to sell, and how hard is it to get in with some of these franchises?
When we first started, it was I'm going to say my mom and Grant helped us out quite a bit, which he's my stepdad, and of course my brother Nick, he's helped us a lot as well. But when we first started, it was a really scary situation because, of course, none of us had a lot of money. You know what I mean? So starting a business, that's kind of a big thing, is to have a little bit of funding. But we was able to get in, and luckily there was not very many small engine shops around. So there was a bunch of franchises open, and we got a hold of Husqvarna, and they basically said, hey, look, we're going to give you guys a shot, and we're going to give you a credit line. I think it's like $25,000. And I said, well, that's great. So we started out with that, and a few little parts, suppliers that we could find that would kind of deal with us. And most of them, believe it or not, started out as a credit card purchase. So, you had to give them your credit card, and they sent you some parts, and you pay that off, and you get some more, So really it started out really scary, but it ballooned. Within a few months, we started picking up different suppliers and things like that, and it really kind of ballooned on us. And then that's when the scary part started, is you think, how in the world am I going to pay for all this?
Yeah.
That's right. But it really worked out, I guess, in our favor that these guys worked with us really well, Toro and Husqvarna. Those were my first two, and man, they worked with us in such a way that allowed us to become what we are today. And today we carry about 6 lines, and those guys, they still work with me really well to make sure we got equipment and make sure we're servicing the area the way we should, and so on and so forth. So, but to get into those franchises was really tough at the beginning. It was.
Yeah. Well, back in the old days, I can remember companies like John Deere. If somebody had the franchise, that they wouldn't even let anybody sell John Deere within like a 50-mile or 100-mile radius.
Exactly.
Of course, I think now they've lifted some of that.
Yeah,
stuff.
I was going to say it's a little closer now. A little more populated areas. It's down to about 40 or 50-mile radius. And we're very lucky in where we're at. I mean, of course, there's several people that sell Husqvarna, your Royal Kings and your Lowe's and stuff like that, but they don't sell, most of the time, not the same equipment we sell. But now, like Toro, we got a guy in Bluefield, and then there's a guy up in Charleston. So that's kind of the closest. So we've got a pretty good area here with those guys, and as well as Skag and Bad Boy as well. So I feel pretty good about where we're at on most of that product. But like you said, now, some of these bigger guys, like I was never able to pick up the Steel franchises or the John Deere franchise. I'm just not quite big enough for that product yet. You know what I mean? But those are great products as well. And but I feel really good about where we're at. We've got some really nice product, and I guess the big thing is I like those Husqvarna, Toro, Bad Boy, those, and Skag as well. They've been really helpful for us, and so, if Mr. Bennett comes in with a problem and I call them and say, hey, man, this is what we got, they're really apt to fix me, to help me fix you. Let's put it that way. So it's been a really good
You're getting ready to start the busiest season. I guess your busy season from April to November.
Pretty much, yes.
And
Yep.
How many people do you normally have employed during that?
We normally will do 8 to 9 employees. So which still shorthands us a little bit, but it allows us to keep the majority of those employees for year round. So we'll normally keep around 7 year round, and then we add a couple in the summer. Trying to keep some young boys in here in the summertime, trying to draw me some new ones in. But a lot of times I'll get them for the summer, and then they move on to something else. But I've had some really, really good employees over the years, some really good young kids that's worked for us. And
now I noticed you've got into the salt business and mulch business.
We have. So
how's that working out?
It's actually been really good. We've, of course, we've got the landscaping division as well that we run, the New Horizons side of this business. And
is that yours?
That's our, that's my mom and Grant. They really take care of that side more than I do. But now I get to take care of the snowplow side of it. So we get we take care of lots, snowplow lots for restaurants and businesses and so on and so forth. And of course we sell bulk salt and sell mulch and sell palleted salt, and just something, it's kind of one of those things that not many people's thinking about grass mowing in the wintertime. So we picked up a few little things to carry us through, and it really does a pretty good job, the salt. And of course the mulch goes right along with the landscapers that come in to buy mowers. They say, hey man, give me a couple scoops of that while I'm here. I can go over here and finish my job or whatever it may be. So it's kind of worked out really good for us.
I noticed, I wouldn't call it a trend yet, but I mean, there's a development of more electric motors and vehicles. And do you see that being a major problem or a gas? Are you going to learn how to work?
Well, I was going to say, it's going to be, they are pushing for us to really learn to sell that product. There's a lot of that product out there already, but it's so nominally expensive right now that people are kind of drove away from it. I think that within a few, maybe 4 to 5 years, you're going to see a lot more electric powered riding lawnmowers and things of that nature. Now, I tell you where it's really took off for us at this point is handheld. Your blowers, your weed eaters, and your chainsaws. I have sold a ton of that stuff in battery, and very easy to work on. Parts are readily available. It's pretty easy to maintain. But what really helps is, a lot of people don't use a chainsaw, but maybe 2 times a year. Well, with your gas-powered chainsaw, your gas is bad, and then you got to come over and see me, and you're mad at me because it won't run, and you know what I mean? So, but with the electric one, you charge your battery up, and you go out and you saw down your limb that fell down, and you go put it back on charge for next time.
Yeah.
And you don't have to worry about starting it and so on and so forth. So, I've got some people that, and I'm not putting anybody down or anything, but as we get older, we get shoulder problems and we get, back problems, and we can't pull start this stuff. So that's where the battery stuff's really come in handy. You grab it, you use it, it's lighter weight, and of course, the big thing is, I guess it doesn't emit any emissions and so on and so forth. And so it's been really, that part of the business has been really good. So
you mentioned some of your family members. How many family members you got working in your business?
So right now I have my wife. She works with me daily, which is enjoyable some days. And then I have my oldest son works for me. He's a big part of the business at this point. And my brother works here as well as my mother. Uh-huh. So out of those employees that I was mentioning, a bunch of us are strictly family. And believe it or not, we actually get along 90% of the time. It's really good. So and that's
better than most.
It's better than most. That's exactly right. It's so and I really have to give it up to my son Caleb. He's 23 years old now, and he has really put forth a lot of effort into our business. And he's I'm going to say he's here before I am in the morning, and he normally is leaving with me in the evening or slightly after. So he has put in a lot of work for me, and to help our business. And of course, he's helping his family too. He's got a couple young kids now, so I'm a grandpappy now, so that's kind of cool. That's right. So, but he's done a really good job for us. I have to really put my hat down to him because he's done a really nice job for me.
Where do you see yourself business wise 10 years from now?
I'd hope to grow a little more. Probably not pick up very many more lines, but I would like to grow a little more into the lines that we're in, maybe into some tractor sales and things of that nature, because a lot of our already existing lines offer things that we don't sell. So I'd like to get into some things of that nature, and I'd like to keep my family on board, and maybe even heck, I've got some kids that are falling, they're in high school or graduating high school, and I'd like to see them kind of fall into the business as well. So we'll see how that works out in the future. But that's kind of what I'm hoping for anyway. So
now let's go back, talk about sports a little bit. How old were you when you first got into the first organized sport?
I think I was 10, and I'd started in into midget league football.
Your dad was a coach.
Dad was a coach. Yep. Now we played for Southwest, and I'm not going to say that, and I was going to say Dad and Greg Shoemate, and I don't know if you remember him or not, but they were the coaches.
Oh, yeah.
So they were coaches, and I'm not going to say that we were ever super good, but we had a great time. And of course, they taught us a lot of things about sports and, and also kind of being a good human as well, I guess, as we go along. But that's where we started, and I think we played there I think it was like we started out in B team, played a few years, and then A team, and then I came up and started playing for you, and I think we ended up playing all 3 years there of junior high at that time, and then I think I played football my 7th grade year, and then my 8th and 9th grade year I played football, and then we wrestled. And of course, you got to coach me on all that, so I kind of enjoyed that.
You're not ruined, are you?
No, I'm not ruined. That's exactly right. It was an enjoyable time, and It's kind of crazy. That's what everybody asked me. They said, "Hey, man, how much did you wrestle and play sports in high school?" And I said, I really once we got out of middle school or junior high at that time, I didn't play sports at all. We had some, not really family issues, but my brother got a little bit ill there and had some issues, and kind of didn't work out for the family for me to play sports at that time. So I decided I wanted to drive a car to school and so I went and got a job. And that's where I started my career down at the feed store. But, I kind of felt, I enjoyed it. I learned a lot in those few years that we did, I did play. And
well, there was some good kids around. I mean, I know Adam Wilson. I think you wrestled with him some, and Adam's selling real estate. I think down in Tennessee.
He is. He is. It looks like he's doing extremely well with his real estate business down there.
He was a great guy, and then there were some guys that on some of the other teams. I think that's when Matt Callahan had come along, and
it was
pretty good bunch of guys. You mentioned Greg Shoemate. Was your dad the head coach then?
Actually, Greg, I think, was the head coach at that point.
Okay.
And
Rick Phoebus came along and helped later.
There was him, and I'm going to say I can't remember some of their names. I was going to say there's probably 4 or 5 guys there that really helped along with the coaching. And it's kind of funny. I remember. Of course, you think back and you're like, wow, I played football with Tamar Slay was actually on the football team with us there, and you go back and you look like, wow, he went on to do some really good things and still doing great things, and I think there was some other guys there that moved on. Played football for Pittsburgh there. For football, proportional.
Oh, you're talking about Legursky.
Legursky, yeah. He played there. He actually was a little bit behind me. He played with my brother there, Nick, and
see, I didn't coach Legursky.
Right.
I was out when he came along, but Sean Surratt, I did coach him, and he actually ended up coaching at Pittsburgh.
At Pittsburgh, exactly. I was going to say so. Those guys, you kind of look around, and they were all right there around me, and those guys went on to do some nice things with sports, and of course they've came back here and done some awesome things with the weight room over at Woodrow and so on and so forth. I mean, there's a lot of nice things that they've done in the for the area.
The guys you coach with at Woodrow, you wrestled with Matt. Austin,
I did. Yep, we actually wrestled together. That's what we actually kind of kick back on that every now and then and said, man, we can't believe we've got such a great team over there right now because me and him, neither one was really good at wrestling. So, I'm going to say some people are good wrestlers and some people are better coaches, I guess. But, they...
well, that's a good point. Over the years, I've had some clinics and camps, and I've brought in some guys. I won't mention their names, but some of them, world-class wrestlers, and couldn't teach a lick.
Right.
But they was great.
Great wrestlers. That's exactly right.
And then I've had other guys who may not have been as good a wrestler, but they were great teachers.
Exactly.
And great coaches. And it's kind of funny how, and then every once in a while you'll get a guy like Cal Sanderson of Penn State who did both.
Yeah, I was going to say he was a great at both ends. That's exactly right. So, and still is. So, it's kind of funny that, like say, we've, he's put in, I have to give it up to Matt because he's doing the thing that like I was mentioning when we started this business. He, works night shift and he comes over and he coaches those boys in the evening and, gets very little sleep and just is the most energetic feller that you could want.
When did you guys started out in the Beckley Junior Eagles?
They did.
Not all of them, but
not all of them, but a big portion of that, what I'm going to say, the sophomore class now, started out in the Beckley Junior Eagles. And, most of them started out when they were 4 and 5 and 6 years old. And they have just, they've hung around there and they've built quite a team. And I say they have built quite a team because they have stuck around with it. And, as a coach, that's one thing you can't make a kid do is hang around with something. So they really like it and they really love the sport. And I'll be honest, at this point, they probably teach us more than we teach them because they just went that far. They get on YouTube and watch for moves and they do this and they watch other kids and they come back into that room and they're like, hey, check this out. And of course, we figure out how to teach it, but they have really, that's a really good group of kids.
Yeah. It becomes kind of a brotherhood, a fraternal type thing because and we've experienced that. My wife and I. You go away on the weekends. You spend the weekends together for sometimes the whole year.
That's
but
exactly
definitely
right.
during the season.
Exactly.
And it's you got to get along. You got to like each other, or it's going to be miserable.
You got that right. You got to. We've got. I'm going to say we've got some. With those kids is some really great parents. I call it. Basically, I kind of call it my wrestling family because, like you just said, we spend more time with that group of people than we spend with our own family. Realistically, because you're all through the week, you're at practice and this and that. And you're kind of talking to them and telling them what's going on, and then, well, you know how wrestling tournaments go. You start on a lot of times on Friday and you're there 12 hours, and you go Saturday and you're there 12 hours, and you go out and eat, and then everybody goes home. So you really spend a lot of time. But we've got some great people that kind of made that team what it is. So
well, this group is pretty special. I mean, you guys. I was looking to grades. I mean, my gosh, all these guys on the honor roll, and I didn't have that luxury so much with some of the guys I had. I had some guys that were excellent students, but I had a few that I had to stay after all the time.
Right.
It looks like you guys. It kind of reminds me when I coached cross country at Woodrow, and I'd never had coached any girls before, and it was girls and boys. It came up, I was going to check their grades. And I had 23 kids on the team, and every one of them made the honor roll, and 12 of them had straight A averages.
Hey,
and I said, I never had this before.
This is great. That's exactly right, sir.
And they actually took their books with them to cross country meets and read on the way back home.
There you go. There you go.
I'm just not used to that. But now you guys, you finished 6th last year in the state,
right.
I think.
Right.
And the 89 team finished 6th. That my son was on that team, and if they had just a couple other little things went a little different, they might have been in the top 3 or 4. The 1987 team finished 5th.
Okay.
And that's the highest anybody's finished in 50, 60 years,
Long
I
time.
think.
That's right.
And so you guys, you got to have a goal. You got to beat that 5th this year.
That's
right.
right.
I don't think the class of '87 would mind.
Probably not. I think I really put forth the effort for these boys. I think, and this is an opinion, of course, but I really think they could be in the top 3 if things go our way.
Yeah.
And we've got enough good, qualified 12 wrestlers. That's awesome.
It is.
So with that being said, we've got such a amount of good kids on that team, and the ones, even the kids that are a couple years in wrestling, so haven't been actually with that group but with them now, maybe they've only wrestled 1 or 2 years. They've actually picked up enough stuff that I think they can get us some points. They can win for a few rounds. And I really think that this is going to be a special year there. I think, like I said, I think we can get into that top 3.
No. How many guys do you lose after this year? I mean,
so we've got Ethan and Jay. So we've really got those 2 seniors are the ones we're really going to lose, and they're an important part of the team. Don't get me wrong on that. They have really, they both are great kids. They've been with this group for several years. Of course, they're a little older than this main group, but they've been in the same room with those guys for years. So it's going to be a little bit of a hurtful loss, especially, like I said, both of them are, great kids.
40, 50 points.
Exactly. They're really good kids. Jay has, I'm going to say Jay has really stepped up his game. He's really wrestled well this year. And of course, Ethan, he is a spectacular wrestler. He is, he's the one everybody looks to in the room and says, "Hey, man, am I doing this right?" So he's a really great kid. Just a really humble kid as well. And I look for him to do good things for us this year at the States.
I hope some of them guys end up going to WVU Tech and wrestling.
I hope so.
Some of these local guys.
Yep.
But, well, anyway, good luck. And, this come to the end. I appreciate you talking to us, and good luck in the state tournament. We get back with you when you guys carry some gold back home.
That's exactly right. That sounds great. Well, I really appreciate you having me on here. was really excited when you called me, and I said, man, I told my wife, I said, this is great. I said, my coach is going to come and interview me a little bit, so that's cool. So I really enjoy you. You know, you come in and out of the shop quite a bit anyway, and I enjoy seeing you and talking to you. So
well, I enjoy talking to you always. And anybody else out there that would like to be on our program, we'd be glad to have you. You can contact me at awbennett50@gmail.com. And until then, remember, if you're not dead yet, you're not done yet. This is Wayne Bennett, and God bless you.